loud. I want to remind those speaking during tonight's meeting that we use closed captioning on the YouTube live stream, so please speak as clearly as possible. Now, please stand if you are able and join us in saying the Pledge of Allegiance in English and Spanish. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God. Thank you. Up next is our acknowledgement of tribal lands. We gratefully acknowledge the Native peoples on whose homelands we gather, as well as the diverse and vibrant Native communities who make their home here today. I'd like to now ask for a moment of silence for those who have given their lives in service to their country. Okay, we will move to roll call. Dr. Albright, may I have a roll call, please?
Heather Benavides.
Here.
Courtney Jackson.
Here.
Josefina Dominguez.
Here.
Zelda Tomorito.
Can she hear you?
Okay, she waved. She's here. Crystal Tapia Romero. Janelle Astorga. Danielle
Here.
Gonzalez.
Janelle was. Did we get member Astorga?
Janelle Astorga.
Yes, I'm here.
Thank you. Danielle
I'm
Gonzalez.
here also. I got it on mute. I'm here.
So everyone is here except for board member Tapia Romero.
Yes. Thank you. Our first item is to consider adoption of the May 7th, 2025 Board of Education meeting agenda. I'd like to remind board members that per the APS Board of Education Governance Manual, we can ask that an item be removed from the consent agenda before the meeting agenda is posted, but not during the meeting. Is there a motion and a second?
I move to adopt the May 7th, 2025 Board of Education meeting agenda. This is Josefina Dominguez.
And I'll second. This is Board Member Benavides.
Great, we have a motion and a second. Can we have a roll call vote, please?
Heather Benavides.
Yes.
Courtney Jackson.
Yes.
Josefina Dominguez.
Yes.
Ronaldo Tomorito.
Yes.
Nell Astorga.
Yes.
Danielle Gonzalez.
Yes. Next is minutes approval. Approval of the minutes from the Board of Education meeting on April 16th, 2025. Can we have a motion and a second, please?
I move to approve the minutes from the Board of Education meeting on August 16th, 2025. This is Member Jackson.
I'll second. This is Josefina Dominguez.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. Can we have a roll call vote, please?
Heather Benavides.
Yes.
Courtney Jackson.
Yes.
Josefina Dominguez.
Yes.
Ronaldo Tomorito.
Yes.
Nell Astorga.
Yes.
Danielle Gonzalez.
Yes. Thank you. Next up on our agenda is student outcomes recognition, which is the most exciting part of tonight and of any board meeting. We're really excited to have so many families and students joining us in the room tonight and really looking forward to sharing in the celebration, hearing about all of your successes and being a part of the big celebration, which we hope carries onward after the meeting. As part of the recognition, we're going to have the students line up against the wall. And I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Blakey to lead us in the recognitions. And I do want to let the community know that you are welcome to stay after the meeting. I'm sorry, after the recognition, but you could also leave at any time. So Dr. Blakey.
Thank you, President Gonzalez, members of the board. Tonight, I am proud to recognize a group of students who exemplify the skills, habits, and mindsets that lead to lifelong success. These students have shown perseverance, self-regulation, self-efficacy, and social awareness. When the board adopted its goals, it emphasized that these traits in response to what we heard from families, educators, and the community. Academic growth matters, and so does helping students build the inner strength to thrive beyond the classroom. Each student we honor tonight reflects that vision. They've overcome challenges, advocated for others, and continue to grow as learners and leaders. They are showing us what life success looks like in action. So let me introduce them to you now. Students, when I call your name, please step forward. And after I have introduced everyone, you will be invited to join us on the dais so the board and I can congratulate you personally. We also have a certificate to commemorate this recognition. Our first student, Jade Romero, from Atrisco Heritage Academy. Jade stands out for her perseverance, self-efficacy, and leadership. She's working toward early graduation, asks for support when needed, and recently spoke at the state legislature as an Enlace intern, demonstrating strong social awareness by advocating for students experiencing homelessness. George Xavier Marquez from Marie Hughes Elementary School. Xavier shines both academically and socially, showing perseverance, self-regulation, and a strong sense of social awareness. Whether he's writing stories, solving math problems, or asking thoughtful questions, Xavier approaches learning with curiosity and self-efficacy. Tiana Renner from Taylor Middle School. Tiana has shown remarkable resilience and dedication, maintaining strong grades and steady attendance even while facing challenges in one of her classes. Her perseverance and growing self-efficacy are clear signs of a student on the rise, supported by her increasing self-regulation and thoughtful social awareness in peer interactions. Amari Middleton from Wilson Middle School. Amari continues to thrive academically while navigating challenges. He demonstrates strong self-regulation, displays impressive perseverance, and participates in teen programming, reflecting a commitment to developing his self-efficacy and deepening his social awareness. Isabella Aragon from West Mesa High School. Isabella leads with creativity and purpose. Her Isabella Interviews social media campaign highlights student voices and promotes a positive campus culture, a powerful display of social awareness. A proud member of the West Mesa Principal Advisory Council and the Phillies team, she exemplifies perseverance, self-regulation, and a strong sense of self-efficacy as she lifts up others. Josiah Charles from Inez Elementary School. Josiah shows strong leadership through her work on the Principal Advisory Council and her calm, solution-oriented mindset. She encourages others, models self-regulation, and stays focused on her goals with unwavering perseverance. Her empathy and encouragement reflect growing social awareness and emerging self-efficacy. And Josiah Thomas from El Dorado High School. Josiah has been a strong advocate for healthier school lunches and plans to continue this work next year. He leads with insight and determination, offering creative ideas, collaborating with peers, and reaching out to decision makers to make a difference. His work reflects powerful social awareness, bold self-efficacy, steady perseverance, and an ability to manage challenges through strong self-regulation. Let's give a hand out to our students. And will the families and staff members who are here to support our students please stand? Thank you. We know it takes a village for our students, and we appreciate all of you and everything you're doing behind the scenes for them. So if you all can come this way, we will give you a certificate. Thank you all for being leaders at your school. Yeah.
Thank you all, staff, families, and students for demonstrating the skills, habits, and mindsets for life success, which we all know are so critically important to the work that we do and critically important to our community. Again, you are welcome to leave if you wish, or you can stay for the rest of the board meeting, or you can leave at any time during the board meeting. I will tell you the board meetings are usually riveting.
You have to show self-regulation.
Some people show self-regulation.
Perseverance.
Perseverance. We will be demonstrating all skills.
So we'll just allow a little bit of time for members of the families and students and maybe staff, I don't know, to leave. And we'll get the room reset.
Awesome, man.
While we are doing that, I'll take a point of personal privilege to say I was startled by the sound of the gavel, but I want to share, I have a brand new gavel that was made by the students at Valley High School in the woods and carpentry class. They tell me it's made out of Purple Heart wood, and they only broke 3 in the process of trying to make it. So it's super exciting. I love it. And they also wrapped it for me. This is very nice too. So tremendous appreciation to the carpentry and woods class at Valley High School, which is part of the Engineering the Future pathway. I hope that has been enough time. And I will go ahead and move us along to the next item in our agenda, which is public forum. And I will turn it over to our Vice President Jackson to share the instructions for public forum.
All right, thank you. So welcome to our public forum guests. When you signed up to speak, you were asked to review the rules and expectations which our presiding officer will enforce. The New Mexico Open Meetings Act requires that our agendas specify in advance the items that will be discussed and voted on during the meeting. Therefore, public forum is not a dialogue among speakers and board members, but rather a chance to hear from our community. We will call participants to speak in the order they signed up, whether in person or virtual. Those here with us tonight will be asked to come to the microphone at the back of the room when your name is called. Online guests will stay in a virtual waiting room until it is their turn to speak. We have set aside 45 minutes for public forum. If there are 22 or fewer speakers, you will each have 2 minutes. Otherwise, you will have 1 minute. Tonight, we have 33 speakers, so each of you will have 1 minute to speak. Once your time is up, you will be asked to quickly wrap up. If you feel unable to convey your message, you may email boarded@aps.edu. In addition, for those of you who are with us tonight, a representative from our service center is here to assist you, and he's waving his pen back there. Okay, so that said, Mr. Gonzalez, will you introduce our speaker? And also, Mr. Gonzalez, I don't know if you can hear, there's a lot of crackle going on. So
In the microphone, the speaker?
the speaker,
It's up here.
Okay, let me address that real quick. Give me just a second.
Oh. Wait, all of a sudden it's addressed.
It's fixed.
Magic.
We got it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Also, there are 35, it looks like was the final total.
Okay, thank you.
Starting, thank you, Board Member Jackson. Starting with public forum, the first speaker is in person, Travis Tester, followed by Damara Andretti. Mr. Tester, you have 1 minute once you begin speaking.
Good morning, Board President Gonzalez, board members, and Superintendent Blakey. My name is Travis Tester, the incredibly proud principal of Eugene Field Elementary, and I'm honored to share the story of our students' growth this year. At Eugene Field, many of our students carry heavy burdens, trauma, food, and housing insecurities, and responsibilities that often force them to make adult decisions far too early. This year, our team made it a priority to give them something different, the chance to just be kids, to laugh, to learn, to build friendships, and to grow in a safe and caring environment. Through cooperative learning structures and a strong emphasis on relationship building, our students have not only grown academically, but have rebuilt their belief in themselves and in each other. They are talking, solving problems, supporting one another, and most importantly, feeling seen and valued. The results of this focus are powerful. From spring of last year to spring of this year, our survey data shows self-efficacy increased by 20%, perseverance up by 17%, self-regulation climbed by 28%, Social awareness up by 26%, and sense of belonging increased by 24%. These numbers tell a story of resilience, hope, and belonging. They show that when students are given the space to heal, connect, and be children, they flourish, not just academically, but emotionally and socially as well. We are
Mr.
proud of the culture
Mr.
we're
Tester, I
building.
need to stop you. I'm sorry. You're going over by 10 seconds. Can you wrap up quickly in one sentence?
Thank you for believing in our children and our students and for supporting this important work.
Thank you, sir. Our next speaker, Damara Andretti. Damara Andretti, you'll have 1 minute once you begin speaking. After Ms. Andretti, there'll be a Tony Watkins. And so go ahead.
Good evening, school board members. My name is Damara Andrade, and last month we raised awareness over 125 sexually explicit materials within the APS libraries. We gave you each guides for that. I received an email saying that your standards empower students to communicate a positive view of themselves. However, these standards allow a Game of Thrones, a graphic novel, which depicts sex acts and sexual nudity between adults, to be in schools like Washington Middle School. I think any reasonable adult would see that as a pretty low standard. If you can provide safe locks on computers where students can't access porn, surely you can provide the same practical sense in the libraries. According to the Teens of Pornography report, 52% of teens who consume porn said they'd seen porn depicting what appears to be rape, choking, or someone in pain. The guide we gave you last month with those books had just that. By advocating for these materials, it is allowing children to learn unhealthy, unrealistic, toxic views on sex and tolerance for discrimination, violence, and racism. Not to mention that same content is what fuels the demand for sex trafficking. Children come to school to learn, to reason, and to grow, not to be introduced to risky pornographic materials. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Tony Watkins, followed by Melissa Sanchez. Mr. Watkins, you have 1 minute once you begin speaking.
Hi, I'm a part of Families United for Education. We are concerned that the board did not vote on the current contract with the Council of Great City Schools. We understand it is the administration's discretion to enter into a contract of this size, but it's perplexing that this board has not voted on a contract that is dictating how it governs. Secondly, the FOIA family engagement policy has not been archived as we were told. It has been taken down from the APS website as part of the Council of Great City Schools policy diet. Third, we've been witnessing mistreatment on the board when it is determined that a board member says something that does not fall in line with the Council of Great City Schools student outcomes focused governance model. This is a violation of the FOIA policy that calls for safe and welcoming environments. The policy should be brought back and should apply to everybody. Finally, we strongly believe that the repurposing of Taft Middle School should not include adopting the name Coronado. Transferring responsibility from the board to the superintendent for naming schools is another part of the policy diet. The jury is not out on whether or not Coronado was a good man. He killed and tortured many Tiwa people on the very land where the school is now. It's offensive to name the school after him. We call for the board to vote against renewing its contract with the Council of Great City Schools.
Thank you, sir. The next speaker is Melissa Sanchez, followed by Anthony Lovato. Ms. Sanchez, you'll have 1 minute once you begin speaking.
Good evening, members of the board. My name is Melissa Sanchez, and I'm the proud principal at Alameda Elementary School. At Alameda, we lead with the belief that every student belongs, no exceptions. To support our students with special education services, we focused on inclusion, consistency, and empowerment. All students begin their day in the general education classroom, and we built a dedicated SEL block for modeling self-regulation through mindfulness, emotional check-ins, and restorative practices. Classrooms have sensory kits, and morning announcements reinforce a daily thought aligned to Goal 4. My personal leadership goal centered on improving outcomes for students most impacted by the Yazzie Martinez findings, and our staff worked together to identify strategies to support students that met multiple categories of this verdict. These practices helped our special education students show double-digit growth in self-efficacy and social awareness, especially in third grade, where our growth reached 22%. Our approach is simple: relationships before academics, and every child is seen as a whole. Thank you for the opportunity to brag about our school.
Thank you, ma'am. Our next speaker is Anthony Lovato, followed by Melanie Misquez-Teles. Mr. Lovato, you have 1 minute once you begin speaking.
Thank you. Hi, I'm Anthony Lovato, the principal at Atrisco Heritage Academy. At Atrisco Heritage Academy, our Family Center has become a vital hub of support for our McKinney-Vento students and their families. Priscilla and Lena ensure students have clothing, currently prom dresses and suits, hygiene products, and assist with student housing. In direct collaboration with the APS McKinney-Vento program, they have removed barriers that stand in the way of learning. I'm sorry. And being a student advocate is one of the biggest strengths. We always talk about having a safe place or person to have on our APS campuses. Well, the Family Center at Atrisco Heritage Academy is that place. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Our next speaker is Melanie Misquez-Teles. You'll have 1 minute once you begin speaking.
Distinguished Dr. Blakey and good APS board. Unas buenas tardes. Soy la principal apasionada de Lou Wallace, where we approach special education as something that belongs to the entire school, not just to a single room or a few teachers. Our ambitious special ed team works both by pulling students out when needed and pushing into classrooms. But what's really powerful is how they also support kids who aren't labeled as having special needs, just students who are struggling. That's where the lines start to blur, but in the best way. It becomes less about who's in special ed and more about the needs of the students in that moment. That kind of environment fosters dignity and compassion for all students. We also have an innovative counselor who pushes into every classroom, leading lessons around inclusion and belonging, and it reinforces the message that every student is valued, seen, and loved. It's not perfect, but we're building a culture where every child, no matter what they're carrying, feels like they matter, and our goal for data around special ed from the students shows it. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is going to be on Zoom, and it is, looks like, sorry, one moment. We're going to go with Francesca Bueller. Are you there? We can see you, but we can't hear you yet.
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, you'll have 1 minute once you begin speaking.
Okay, thank you. My name's Francesca Bluer, and I was a student, a teacher, and a parent in APS. Tonight, I would like to talk about how APS is being negatively portrayed in the media to our community under the guise of student outcomes-focused governance. The SOFG model is now being implemented by our board and is fueled by standardized test scores. These scores come from tests created and marketed by for-profit publishers, have never shown to be an indicator of student learning, are given to a few selected grades once a year, and most tragically ignore the brilliance of our students, teachers, and communities. The harm in publishing and promoting these misleading, biased, unresearched scores and labeling it as student outcomes is that it completely ignores the engaging, rich, beautiful, and brilliant programs that are in APS. We are ignoring and erasing the student outcomes that come from our school gardens, our rich music and art programs, community mentorship, dual language programs, ethnic studies.
Ms. Bueller, I have to stop you there. You got over your 2 minutes. Please wrap up in a quick sentence, very short.
Looking at the students through the narrow lens of a standardized test score, it is impossible to see the inspiration and deep learning that is happening in our schools.
Thank you, ma'am. Our next speaker is Carrie Healy, also on Zoom.
Hi, can you guys hear me?
We can. You have 1 minute once you begin speaking.
Awesome. Thank you. Good evening, members of the board. My name is Carrie Healy, and I'm a special education teacher at Carlos Ray Elementary. And I'd like to share with you how we're meeting our student needs under Goal 4. Currently, our scores on the skills, habit, and mindset surveys are higher than both the district and national average. And it all started with our staff mindset that we determined that we are one team and are all responsible for the success of all students. We are there to support each other. The students see the staff helping each other, and we work to utilize staff expertise to contribute to the student and community needs. We model for our students self-regulation and coping skills. When times arise where we are frustrated ourselves, we use them as teachable moments. We model our coping skills and discuss with our students how we persevere, regulate our emotions, and advocate for ourselves. If needed, we provide direct instructions in these areas with the use of the zones of regulation or Mojo from Class Dojo. We prioritize developing relationships with our students. We recognize that the brain is growing and realize mistakes happen and offer students fresh restarts each day.
Ms. Healy, you've got over 2 minutes. Can you wrap up in a quick sentence, please?
I would just want to say that strong, positive staff culture creates a strong, cohesive school team that supports our student growth.
Thank you. Our next speaker is in the room, Arturo Quintana. You'll have 1 minute once you begin speaking.
Advice for any children to leave the room. Why must I come here on my spare time to speak on things to you which are logical? Do you not have common sense? Do you lack discernment? Or do you just don't care on which things should and shouldn't be acceptable for the children in APS? This isn't about silencing free speech. That's not the vocabulary I'm using. However, the approach and stance I'm taking on is self-evident. That is, what should and shouldn't be appropriate in the schools. If a book like Lucky by Alice Sebold should be in Jackson Middle School and other high schools, then I challenge you to add this book inside your own household for your children to have easy access to. Quote, he kicked me and I curled into a ball. I want a blowjob. He held his dick in his hand. I've never done it before. I said, I'm a virgin. Put it in your mouth. I kneel before him. Can I put my bra back on? I want my clothes. He grabbed my head, put it in your mouth and suck. He said, like a straw? I said, yeah, like a straw, end quote. If you think I'm crazy for saying this, congratulations. You're using logic and common sense of why this is wrong and outrageous to be in a place of learning. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is on Zoom, and it is Sally Duradecki. You there? Sorry, I probably butchered that. You have 1 minute once you begin speaking.
It's okay. Sally Duradke. I speak to you as a former public school teacher and APS parent of 3 children. When I moved to Albuquerque from the East Coast, everyone told me that the public schools here weren't worth my time and I should look into charter and public schools. Or private schools, sorry. I saw an extreme lack of trust in APS in the community. Despite that, we chose to send our kids to our neighborhood public school because I believe in quality education for all, not just those who have the privilege to shop for a school, and I want to be a true stakeholder in the public education system. Now, I'm concerned about the decision to base all decisions on student outcome measures for our students at APS, and it worries me. I believe these measures, test scores, do not reflect the things that make our community great, and that data like test scores isn't really what will convince parents to trust APS. So many things that are aligned with the values of this community are not considered student outcomes, like school safety, culturally welcoming schools, small class sizes, inclusivity, mental health, relationships, healthy school lunches, transportation, gender and racial equity, outdoor learning time. Council of Great City Schools and their student outcomes focused governance framework is causing separation between the board members and their community, which is not productive toward rebuilding trust in the community. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Our next speaker is in person, Janet Harmon, followed by Hyung Nguyen. Janet, you'll have 1 minute once you begin speaking. I'm sorry, once you begin speaking, you have 1 minute.
Good evening. I thank you for this opportunity for letting the community speak, and I hope you listen to us. I'm the mother of 2 APS grads. At the last board meeting, I witnessed how Council for Great City Schools already negatively affects our school district. After 45 minutes of meaningful testimony from teachers, students, and parents, many of whom shared a glimpse into the daily dysfunction of APS life, you, the board, proceeded to spend valuable time on CGCS generated self-evaluation. One of the council's coaches, I believe he's with us tonight, was zoomed in to guide you on how to fill out their evaluation to the tune of $150 an hour. Talk about a waste of time and money. Any of us on this side of the, how do you say it? Can tell you that the board leadership is out of touch. Did you even hear the desperation in the voices from this community? APS families are fed up. This is reflected in low school attendance. Adopting the tactics of the council will only push students further away from school. The guidance that comes from the Council of Great City Schools is irrelevant to our community. I'm sure someone's making money off of it and benefiting, but it's not Albuquerque students.
Thank you. Okay, you got over no, ma'am, you can hand those to me and I'll make sure the board members get them. Thank you, ma'am. Okay, Ms. Nguyen, I believe you're up. It is 1 minute once you begin speaking.
Hi, my name is Hương Nguyen, Director of Community Engagement with the New Mexico Asian Family Center. I'm also a mother to 2 former ABS students. Both of my sons went to Bandelier Elementary and Cibola High. It has come to our attention that our organization, the New Mexico Asian Family Center, has been referenced by the board president in recent decision-making, conversation, and discussion related to community engagement, but we staff are not aware of any recent conversation with the president. Using our organization in this manner without meaningful engagement is tokenizing and inappropriate, and it does not serve our families and students. The tokenization needs to stop, and instead ongoing and intentional engagement with API-NH and other BIPOC family and student must be conducted if you want to authentically support our community. Second, as part of our nonpartisan civic engagement work, we encourage our family to attend board meeting and engage with APS board member. We all know it has direct and crucial impact on our everyday life. We are really alarmed by the changes being made that restrict our board member from speaking freely about their votes on issues and decisions. Like many others, we believe that the board member should have direct communication with families and students to hear and understand their needs and wants, and to build the necessary trust to serve them. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Our next speaker is on Zoom. That is going to be Hannah. Hannah, I see you there. I can't hear you yet. There we go. You'll have 1 minute once you begin speaking.
Good evening. My name is Hannah Manolfa, and I'm the proud principal at Bel Air Elementary School. At Bel Air, we lead with belonging. From the moment a child walks through our doors, they're part of our school, especially our McKinney-Vento students. We built a culture where every student is greeted by name each morning, and every classroom fosters connection, regardless of a student's background or housing status. Our staff uses consistent SEL language aligned with Panorama and supported through monthly mindset themes. These lessons happen school-wide each Wednesday, and they're reinforced throughout the week. We honor all languages, even when we don't speak them, and we give students a voice through our Principal Advisory Council. Our approach isn't about a program, it's about building a community that welcomes and lifts every child every day. We saw a 17-point rise in our self-regulation among our McKinney-Vento students on our Panorama survey. I'm proud of our work, and I'm looking forward to the future. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, ma'am. Our next speaker is also on Zoom, Charlotte Joseph. You also have 1 minute once you begin speaking.
Hi, good evening, all. Thank you for your time. I am a parent of 2 APS students, and I want to start by thanking you for your work you've done to set up the goals and guardrails for APS and our students. However, I want to express my concern about the methods being implemented to meet those noble goals. I feel the Council of Great City Schools SOFG model is not tailored to help our unique students thrive and learn, as has been previously set out by prior speakers. Additionally, I'm concerned about the board's anti-democratic direction that is concentrating power with the board president and curtailing communication between board and the community and principals. We can see certain board members are being coached in real time during meetings. We have voted on board members to represent the community, and instead some board members are answering to the council instead of community. I have concerns about policies being shelved, including the family engagement policy that was adopted by the board after hundreds of community members and organizations advocated for it, and it's no longer available on the APS website. In closing, I feel the Council of Great City Schools SOFG model is not a good fit for APS, and I ask that the contract with them not be renewed and that there be no money allotted for this contract in the budget next year. And I ask that the model we use to improve our students' educational experience and outcomes be tailored for our community.
Thank
you.
you. Our next speaker is in person, Ms. Janet Sayers, followed by Matthew Malden.
Good evening, Madam President, board members, Superintendent Blakey. Did you all notice that when the people start talking up there, that little thing is blocking their faces? At least we can't see the people on Zoom. It has that thing across them. Anyway, community engagement, just a couple thoughts. I encourage board members. I know you have busy lives, you have families, you have many of you work for a living still, but I would just suggest go to some of these fabulous events that you all are having. So 2 weeks ago, I got to go to the Metro Art Award thing, talk to parents, grandparents, I got some of the kids that won things to autograph the book. You would have thought, anyway. So that's an idea for community engagement. Last night I attended the Del Norte Orchestra concert. Same things, moms, dads, aunts, uncles, grandparents. You don't have to come for the whole time. Maybe just come at the beginning, say hello, but putting a name and a face, a lot of people do not know who board members are. Anyway, thank you for your time, your service. And tomorrow morning, 8 o'clock, we're having breakfast treats at Del Norte High School. You're very welcome to come and get a cup of coffee and stuff. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Our next speaker is Matthew Malden, followed by David Hams. You'll have 1 minute once you begin speaking.
This is your final meeting of the year, and after everything that's been exposed in these meetings, everything you've seen and heard, especially from Damara and my friend Arturo here, I'm not sure whether to speak to you as leaders or survivors of your own conscience. Listen, I've spoken to teachers, I've heard their testimonies, and you should be ashamed of what's being done under your watch. Teachers keeping secret files on students struggling with gender confusion intentionally hidden from parents, children coming from school dressed one way and being allowed to change into other clothing that affirms a false gender and then changing back so their parents stay in the dark. Teachers who know this is wrong but stay silent because they're afraid of teachers' unions. Listen, I was here a few weeks ago and there was a lot about affirming these gender confused children because of fear of suicide. But a recent study from the University of Texas reveals that the exact opposite is true. Look it up. And so while this has been going on, New Mexico is dead last in everything. So I've got a question for you. Please raise your hand for everybody to see. Do you believe that parents, not the government, are primary moral and emotional authority of a child's life? Do you believe that schools should always inform parents when their child is experiencing confusion or distress related to gender identity or mental health? Do you believe that sexually explicit content should be completely removed from school libraries and curriculum, no matter how it's labeled?
Sir, you've gone over your 2 minutes. I'm sorry. Please wrap up in one quick, short sentence.
Do you believe that hiding a student's emotional struggles or identity from their family is also a betrayal of trust and a violation of parental rights? You not raising your hand says something.
Thank you, sir. Our next speaker is David Hams, followed by Gabe Gomez. Matthew, you'll have 1 minute once you begin speaking, sir. You're David. I'm sorry. That was Matthew. My mistake.
Hi, my name is David Hams. I'm here to speak in full support of the student outcomes focused governance model. Under SOFG, graduation rates are improving, and there is a reason for that. There is a reason that reading proficiency in multiple languages in our most vulnerable populations is increasing. There's a reason that math proficiencies are increasing, and it's in no small part to the goals and guardrails that are the backbone of SOFG. For the first time ever, the SOFG model has engaged the community by reporting real-time monitoring of reading and math goals. That's right, the board is communicating directly to parents about how their kids are doing in reading and math real-time. That's real community engagement. I absolutely prefer a board that stays focused on what the majority of your community has asked you to stay focused on. And that is the education of students. As a parent, I very much encourage this board to renew the contract with the Council of Great City Schools. This collaboration has provided huge benefits for our students and to our city as a whole. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Our next speaker is Gabe Gomez. After Gabe, we'll have Dominica Chavez. Sir, you have 1 minute once you begin speaking.
Good evening, President Gonzalez and board members. My name is Gabe Gomez, and I'm here tonight as an APS parent and community member to express my strong support for student outcomes-focused governance. We all know that change is hard. It requires us to challenge old habits, rethink how we do business, and sometimes face criticism. But what we've created, outcomes that support students unconditionally, is the kind of leadership that meets the moment. You've chosen to focus on what matters most, making sure every child, no matter their zip code, their background, or their circumstances, has a real opportunity to succeed. You've set clear goals. You've prioritized academic progress. And you sent a message that resonates with families like mine. Our kids come first. As a parent, I've noticed the impact. Expectations become more meaningful when there's clarity about what we're all working toward. Whether in the classroom, at home, or in board meetings, responsibility is shared. And the path forward becomes something we build together, not something we guess in. Our students deserve a board that is focused, disciplined, and outcomes driven. You are showing us what that looks like, and I'm grateful for it. Please stay the course. Our students are counting on your leadership. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Our next speaker is Dominica Chavez, followed by Edwin Herring. You have 1 minute once you begin speaking.
Good evening, Madam President and board members. My name is Dominica Chavez, and I serve as the Advocacy Manager at New Mexico Kids Can. We are proud to support your strategic plan and student outcomes-focused governance. Where APS leads, others follow. And your leadership has already inspired districts across New Mexico to adopt their own strategic plans and set clear academic goals focused on student success. We know it's not easy to evaluate your progress, and even harder to do it publicly, but that's exactly what this board is doing. By focusing on student outcomes, you are acknowledging hard truths and doing something about it. You've set measurable goals and put a plan in place to move forward. That is courageous and exactly what our students need. Change is hard. With change comes resistance, but our students deserve progress. They deserve an education that prepares them for the future. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Our next speaker is Edwin Herring, followed by Megan Long. You have 1 minute once you begin speaking, sir. Is that high enough for you? Okay.
I'll reach down. Good afternoon. I'm honored to speak on behalf of the special education program at Lew Wallace Elementary School. Our students and educators have been doing incredible work. At Lew Wallace, special education students are embraced as classmates and friends. Inclusion is part of a school culture, and educators have worked hard to create opportunities for all students to learn and grow together. As a result, student morale within the program has improved significantly. This is a direct reflection of the phenomenal educators who go above and beyond every day. However, Lew Wallace, special education at Lew Wallace and across the district is in dire need of more human capital. We need more teachers, EAs, and specialists to meet the increasing demands placed on staff and students. Just as importantly, we need more time to carry out the essential planning, coordination, and support tasks that make student success possible. Lew Wallace is a shining example of what is possible through innovation, commitment, and compassion. But it should not take extraordinary effort to go above and beyond the call of duty for our special education programs to succeed. Our educators are doing exceptional work, but they need and deserve more support, especially in the form of dedicated people to share the work. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Our next speaker is Megan Long, followed by Lee Ross. Yeah. No, I get. There you go.
Good evening, board members. Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
Good evening, board members. I'm a constituent from District 3 here to express my concern over the contract with Council of Greater City Schools. Given what we have learned about CGCS and their influence on other school boards in the state of public education nationally, I implore the board and administration to reconsider entering another agreement with them. I want to clarify, this is not a criticism of student outcomes. Instead, it is a criticism of the implementation of this governance on our school board and the district as a whole. The changes implemented by the board president under the instruction of these coaches are anti-democratic. I also want to clarify that this is not a criticism of the teachers and staff at our school. As the mother of 2 Native children in APS, I am incredibly grateful for the teachers they interact with on campus, the front office admin, the janitorial and cafeteria staff, and their principal. My quarrel is with those removed from the classroom in a nice office or behind a dais who make the decisions that affect them and their classmates the most. We need to keep out-of-state consultants out of the boardroom and instead focus on local resources that can offer culturally competent coaching, especially following the latest ruling in the Yossi Martinez case.
Thank you, ma'am. Our next speaker is Lee Ross, followed by Yvonne Salazar. Mr. Ross, you have 1 minute. Once you begin speaking, is the mic okay? Okay.
Good evening, board members. I wanted to talk about something that was said at the last board meeting. And I actually emailed the board president about this, which she responded to, and I'm grateful for that. But she said that we know that this rubric that you were using was most effective because of the research base and extensive research that has been done on this rubric. So what I wanted to clarify in that statement, I don't think it was research that was done on the rubric. It was that research was done to make the rubric, and that we don't really know that this is the best rubric. We don't know that this is the best. I mean, there's no way to know that this is the best thing we can do. But I feel like we should have a dialogue and that we shouldn't be saying we know anything really about this because there's no research on it. That's this is related to the students outcome focused governance, and I hope that you guys reconsider approving the contract with the Council of the Great City Schools. And thank you very much for my time.
Thank you, sir. Your next speaker is Yvonne Salazar. Yep.
Good evening. I'm Yvonne Salazar, the principal of Atrisco Elementary School. We made Goal 4 our North Star this year. At our school, where the majority of our students are represented under the Yazzie and Martinez subgroups, we knew we had to build from within. We kicked off the year with staff PD that focused on routines to create learning environments where students know they belong, know they're capable, and have the tools to keep going even when learning gets tough. Goal 4 posters were created in English and Spanish and are posted in every classroom and throughout our campus. Our counselor taught SEL schools in every classroom and supported students again when they took the Panorama survey, offering reassurance and reinforcing understanding. Students earned awards not just for academics, but for showing perseverance and social awareness. Our campus-wide shout-out system lifted both students and adults. These daily reinforcements helped our most vulnerable students build confidence, develop resilience, and know they are deeply valued. Most importantly, my message to staff was clear and has resonated throughout the school year. We cannot get to Goal 1 without first mastering Goal 4. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is on Zoom. It is Michael Pepperman. Are you there, sir? Go ahead. You have 1 minute once you begin speaking.
Okay, thanks. My name is Michael. I am an APS graduate, Albuquerque High, go Bulldogs. I also have a son who's in second grade in APS. And I am speaking out in favor of this student outcomes focused governance model, not because I think numbers can represent everything. I agree with people who say that that's not possible. I also know that focusing on student outcomes in other states has led to really significant gains in actual student performance and actual growth in kids. And I think that's so important. And so I appreciate that the board, even though it's not easy, is pushing forward and trying for change because we need change. We need, in a state where we are 50th out of 50, and we have been in that realm for a long time, we need to do something differently, and appreciate that we have guidance from people like the Council of Great Schools to help us learn from best practices elsewhere and implement those here in a way that makes sense for New Mexico, which is very much what I think the board is trying to do. So thank you.
Thank you, sir. Okay, our next speaker is in person, Renee Pacheco. Okay, we're going to go next with AJ Woods. Mr. Woods, you have 1 minute once you begin speaking.
Hi, folks. My name is AJ Woods. I'm an environmental educator at Harrison Middle School. I teach sixth grade science. In bringing this information to you today, I'm citing the New Mexico Whistleblowers Protection Act. On December 26, 2024, a sewer line ruptured near my campus that dumped 90,000 gallons of untreated raw sewage onto the Harrison grounds directly. That sewage remains on my campus at this time. It poses a health risk to my students, to my community. My administration knew that this took place when it happened. I've been asking for information for months after a month-long investigation, 5-month-long investigation. Came to find out the details. Norm Gom, a water advocate, has come down to look at the site. He's calling it environmental injustice at the highest order, and I would like to make sure that gets cleaned up. I want you to imagine that your child goes to my school where an environmental catastrophe took place on this capacity, and ask yourself, how would you feel if you were not notified about that?
Thank you. Our next speaker is on Zoom, Michaela Peterson. Michaela, you have 1 minute once you begin speaking, and Casey Peterson is right after you. Are you going to share the same account, or is Casey going to join separately?
He's on a
So
separate Zoom.
I'm going to let you go, and then I'm trying to get him to join as well.
Okay. As a parent and community member, I am deeply concerned about the real measurable harm being caused by inappropriate content in our schools. So the data states sexually explicit material causes increased depression, anxiety, distorted relationship views, and early sexual activity in children. That cites the American College of Pediatricians and PubMed, among others. Violent content increases aggression and normalizes violence. According to the Journal of Adolescent Health, the NIH, and the American Psychological Association, drug and alcohol-themed content correlates with early experimentation, long-term substance abuse, and failing grades, citing the NIH and JAMA Pediatrics. Graphic violence and gore content leads to PTSD-like symptoms, increased aggression, and disrupted development. That's according to the National Institute of Justice. Suicide-themed content is linked to higher rates of suicidal ideation and behavior among youth. That's according to the NIH, JAMA Pediatrics, and the Journal of Pediatric Psychology. These are not anecdotes. These are published, peer-reviewed studies from top medical and scientific institutions. I urge this board to please create a content review policy, remove harmful materials in these categories, and let's get back to focusing on student outcomes. Thank you.
Thank you. And our next speaker is Casey Peterson.
First, I want to thank you for supporting the student outcomes focused model. I think it's absurd that somebody won't be supporting the merit-based outcomes, and it's obviously having some effect, so that's a positive thing. And I want to speak about these inappropriate books a little more. Last time I spoke, I came here and we highlighted that, extremely inappropriate book where, you had a very graphic scene of an infant being fingered and raped, and in very graphic detail, as if it was a smut novel. And now this, just another book I want to highlight, and this one's in specifically Volcano Vista High and some other high schools, but it's a Choke. Is the name of the book, Choke by Chuck, and it says, it talks about bestiality and all sorts of other things, but it says for a sex addict, your tits, your dick, your clit, your tongue, or your asshole is a shot of heroin, and it goes on, and it talks about all sorts of depravity. And again, just we need to start with some very basic standards, just saying like, okay, this is clearly past the line, like this is clearly absurd. So I appreciate your time.
Thank you, sir. Our next speaker is also on Zoom, Nina Simbana. Nina, are you there?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am. You have 1 minute once you begin speaking.
Good evening. Thank you, members of the board. I'm a mother of a public school student in APS. I ask you to vote against entering into any contracts with the Council of Great City Schools. After watching several board meetings, it's become clear that some members of the board are working from an outside playbook with an agenda that does not best serve our APS students. Upon hearing about the council, I decided to learn more about what they stand for and why they have interest in our district. To my surprise, I discovered a lengthy list of communities making a stand against the council's undemocratic methods and rejecting their agenda. The controversy around their work is well documented by board members and communities across this country. As a district, we are in a position to unite against bad actors who are trying to influence our board, administration, and families alike. The education of our students is uniquely New Mexican. No outside contractor can understand what it is to be a student or a guardian here. We have our own experts who believe in putting children before profits. We have our own practitioners who genuinely believe in lifting up the public school system and understand that privatizing education is detrimental to our children and society as a whole. APS belongs to the children, and rather than treat families as quote unquote customers, we should be treated as partners. Let's unite as a community and say no to outside private interests and no to the insiders who support them. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is in person, Alfonso Otero, followed by Deanna Barella. Alfonso, you have 1 minute once you begin speaking.
Good evening, board members and Dr. Gabriella Blakely and guests. I, Alfonso Otero, principal at Highland High School, come to share some exciting news. Our growth on Guardrail 4, habits, mindsets. Our Highland High School, with almost 94% of our students completing the survey this spring, which is the most they've ever done, which was exciting. We were able to capture some gains, notably with our McKinney Bento and our foster students cohorts. We worked hard in the departments with the Department of Equity to support our students and teachers through collaborative circles and through our Principal Advisory Council for Student Voice. Through our teachers' collaboration through leadership, instructional council, a goal was implemented through the 90-day plan early in the year to foster a stronger sense of belonging and to build a culture where every student matters. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Our next speaker is Deanna Barilla, followed by Havens Levitt. You'll have 1 minute once you begin speaking, ma'am.
Thank you. Good evening. My name is Mrs. Deanna Barella. I am the assistant principal at Highland High School. At Highland, we believe that meaningful change didn't just start with policies, but it starts with people, and it begins with a sense of belonging. This year, we saw a 5% increase in our student sense of belonging within our Panorama data. However, that growth started with adults, and we were able to build strong relationships not only with the students within the McKinney-Vento program, but within each other. When adults felt supported and seen, they created the conditions for students to thrive. And that's why our centered connection, by being able to offer each patience, grace, and curiosity, was also not only given to our students, but adults as well. At Highland, we're not just improving outcomes, we're creating a culture of trust and sense of belonging for everybody. And that's what we felt made change sustainable. And this is what makes Highland different. Together, through relationships and everyday acts of grace, we're building something powerful from adults to the students. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. You have 1 minute once you begin speaking. Our next speaker after Havens here will be Wendelin Young.
Right. Good evening. My name is Havens Levitt. I am a retired teacher and an APS graduate. I came tonight just to express my appreciation for the board's continued commitment to supporting especially our LGBTQ students, especially given the current rhetoric. The fact that you are not backing down and continuing that commitment really means a lot, and it makes a difference and makes it more likely that all of our students will succeed. So bravo, or brava, brav all.
Thank you. Gwendolyn, you have 1 minute once you begin speaking, and after you, Samantha Swan will be next.
Thank you. Good afternoon. My name is Gwendolyn Young. I'm a grandmother of 2 children in APS. My concerns about the books that are in the libraries are not about the LGBTQ or identity or race or religion or class. Our concerns are about ensuring that you are providing age-appropriate materials to the children in our schools. A study of boys and girls ages 14 to 19 found that reading pornographic comics and magazines significantly increased the likelihood of having sexually harassed a peer or having forced someone to have sex. A comprehensive review study found that children who had been exposed to such media had higher rates of being victims or perpetrators of sexual violence. I am working to help parents learn about these books that are in their schools. I'm a grandparent, I can't challenge, but I can have other parents challenge these books that are in their children's school. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. And Samantha Swan. You'll have 1 minute once you begin speaking.
Thank you. My name is Samantha Swan, and I am a parent of 3 students at Collette Park Elementary School. I'm here today with a heart full of gratitude for the extraordinary teachers there at Collette Park. I'm here today to specifically thank Karen Duwandi, a special education teacher, and Catherine Maston, a 3rd grade general education teacher. As a parent, you entrust your most precious gifts, your children, to the care and guidance of educators. For my oldest daughter, these particular teachers have been more than just instructors. They've been a beacon, a mentor, and true partner in their growth. For this, I am eternally grateful. In a world where educators sometimes face unwarranted criticism and even harassment, it is vital that we as a community stand firmly in their corner. We must recognize their invaluable contributions, honor their expertise, and treat them with respect they so richly deserve. They're shaping the lives of our children, and in doing so, they're shaping the future of our communities and our nation. So today, alongside my personal thanks to these 2 remarkable teachers, I want to express my deep appreciation for all the educators in our district. Thank you for your tireless dedication, your unwavering passion, and your profound commitment to our children. We're the unsung heroes of our society, and we are better for your service. Let us as a community ensure that our teachers feel valued, supported, and celebrated always. Thank you.
Thank you. Board members, this completes public forum.
Thank you, Mr. Gonzalez, and thank you to all of our public forum guests. We will move on to the next item on our agenda, which is to consider acceptance of progress monitoring reports for interim goals 4.1 and 4.2, which are skills, habits, and mindsets for life success. I'd like to welcome up to present Dr. Antonio Gonzalez, Deputy Superintendent of Leadership and Learning, Ms. Sherry Jett, our Chief Academic Officer, and Kenneth Salazar, Associate Superintendent for School Climate and Support. Dr. Blakey will begin this presentation, but I'm going to turn it over to Board Member Benavides to facilitate this portion of the agenda.
Thank you, Madam President, and thank you all for being here this evening. Tonight, we will be monitoring interim goals 4.1 and 4.2, measuring skills, habits, and mindsets for life. Before we begin, we need to confirm that our monitoring report is complete. I believe that all of the criteria for an effective report have been met, but I will open the floor for anyone else who thinks we may be missing one of the elements. Do any of my fellow board members have evidence that suggests otherwise, either here or on Zoom? No? Okay, wonderful. Since everyone agrees that the required elements are present, we will open the floor for our monitoring conversation. As a reminder, we have asked questions that are technical or tactical in nature before tonight's meeting. Those questions and their answers are posted with the agenda materials for the public to see and enjoy. Each board member is expected to ask a question during the meeting to help us understand how the administration's actions align to the board's goals and guardrails. These questions must be SMART, meaning they must be strategic, measure-focused, ask-oriented, results-driven, and time-bound. So let's get started. Dr. Blakey?
Thank you, Board President, Member Benavides, and members of the board. We are excited tonight to talk about Goal 4, and I think as one of the principals mentioned, we often talk about Goal 4 being the foundation for the other goals. So we appreciate the attention that we have been able to give to this particular goal and the work of Ms. Jett and Dr. Why did I just was going to call you Sandoval? Salazar. Dr. Salazar has been doing to really focus in on our schools and Goal 4 and the progress that we've made on it. So with that, we are opening up for questions.
Okay, and I have a question, if you all don't mind me starting. Is that okay with you, Madam President?
Yeah, absolutely. You're facilitating.
Okay, wonderful. So my question is relevant to interim goal 4.2. And the results say, just for context, for people watching and following along, we have 3 aspects of Goal 4 that are on track: self-efficacy, perseverance, and social awareness. And 1 aspect that is off track, and this is self-regulation. And so this is for students in 6th through 12th grades. And so the question I'm going to ask is relevant to the question that was submitted ahead of time. How was the root cause for underperformance and self-regulation, emotional and academic support systems identified and verified? And this was question 5. And so it says the root cause was identified through student survey data and open-ended responses showing struggles with stress, focus, and emotional management. These issues were most pronounced among students experiencing homelessness or in foster care. Findings were verified through input from principals, et cetera. And so my question is, what specific self-regulation strategies and supports will be implemented for students with limited adult connections by fall 2025, and how will their effectiveness be measured through survey data and student support team referrals?
Good evening, Madam Board President, Board Member Benavides, Superintendent Blakey. I'm just excited to be able to speak to you again on behalf of Goal 4. And so looking at the root cause and what are the self-regulation specific strategies that we're looking for next year, as we have a lot of it in initiatives in our 4.2, which is secondary plan for next year. A lot of these are building upon each other. And so I can take I'll talk about a couple of them, and I'm pretty sure we might have some questions about it in the future. The first one I'm going to talk about is our restorative approaches initiative that we have coming with us. This will be, right now we have currently 8 schools that are attending a 4-day intensive training with restorative approaches. This is really looking at building a culture of care on your campus and thinking of restorative approaches as being more proactive than reactive. And next year, we are looking to do the same with 2 more cohorts. which would give us a total of 24 schools in 25-26 that have gone through this intensive training. What we are looking for with this particular initiative is building capacity amongst the district, creating 24 models in the district, elementary, K-8s, middle schools, high schools, that can be leveraging as bright spots in the district for other schools, other administrators, other teachers to go to really look at what are the systems that they have in place, what were some of the barriers that they had in implementation, and we're going to use those cohorts as learning opportunities and build that capacity. So that is one approach in secondary that we're looking for. Specifically as well for secondary, we're looking at how do we approach our advisory models and build that, the purpose of our, go back to our purpose for advisory, which is truly building relationships with staff and also their peers. And how do we really build that and foster that relationships? And so we're really looking at reimagining advisory resources from the district for schools to be able to choose from. Those advisory resources would be offered by grade level, by 6 through 12. They would also have choices. So not just a cookie cutter, here are your advisory choices for next year. It would be choice offerings for 6th grade, built on self-efficacy, self-regulation, and also really looking at how do we build the relationships amongst staff and their peers. Another approach that we're looking at, which I'm also really excited about, is our counseling comprehensive programs, really looking at that as our district. I'll talk a little just about that. We, using the ASCA model, which is the Association for Counseling, we are looking at those model frameworks in our district and working with our amazing counselors and really looking at building these comprehensive counseling programs that are centered around mindset standards that are part of the counseling, and they really align to what we're doing with our skills, habits, and mindsets in the district. And so really looking at what are our comprehensive counseling models that we are striving for. And right now we have 2 current schools that are actually RAMP recognized, which is basically RAMP stands for Recognized ASCA Model Program. We at Albuquerque Public Schools are really looking to see how can we increase that number to have more RAMP schools. And I could talk more about that if there's any questions about that one, but those are kind of like the examples that we have that are more of really looking at systemic change and looking at systems and structures at schools to build in and help identify what we can do to build a more comprehensive approach to self-regulation, specifically in secondary. And so those are kind of the going back to that, those are what we're looking at as far as when we look at the root cause, those were some of the systems. And then also those are some of the initiatives that we have for secondary self-regulation.
Wonderful. Thank you, Dr. Salazar. And if I could just ask a brief follow-up, that was super comprehensive and thank you, so much information, but specific to students with limited connections, is there any additional information you can provide for that group? I know all of that applies, but how do you drill down to reach those students?
Yes, so I am going to give out a shout out to Roosevelt Middle School. I recently attended there last week just to go see what they're doing. Their Goal 4 data is off the roofs with secondary and middle school. And so I wanted to learn from, what are you doing as far as administration and teachers? And a lot of it is built on relationships and really looking at that one-to-one connection with their students. And it was amazing the structures that they have in place there that we can really look as a bright spot in the district to leverage. They know their students, not just by name, but their situations, and being able to really understand and have that true unique relationship that I think could be really beneficial as far as those kinds of strategies, as far as where is the sense of belonging of kids. In our district data, we have roughly less than 40% of our kids saying that they feel connected to an adult on campus. And so that's something, even though sense of belonging is not necessarily a Goal 4 aspect, we truly do believe that sense of belonging is still a critical component in building your school's culture. And so that is something that as an indicator, we're working with schools to see how do we truly go back to build that relationship with your students and have that one-to-one connection. And our advisory programs are a revamping of imagining those resources will hopefully help, not hopefully, hope is not a strategy, we're really going to really look to make sure that there is that one-to-one connection. Who is that adult that you're on campus?
Okay, thank you so much. Anybody want to go next? I'm not going to pick on anybody. Would like it, people who have questions to ask them. Please.
Okay. I have two questions, if that's all right, of course. Okay, so my first one is relating to interim goals 4.1 and 4.2. I am curious to know how you are intentionally using student voice to inform and build your strategy.
Sorry, I got a big smile on my face because this is something that I'm really excited about. So in your board documents for progress monitoring, I put in a supplemental report. That supplemental report was based on student open responses. And what was really beneficial about digging into deep with those student responses is actually connecting a student voice to a quantitative number. And so being able to actually hear the stories of our students in those open responses, there was good, there was bad, and there was ugly. And so we as a district really need to look and see how do we leverage student voice in our initiatives that we're doing in our schools. And so one of those strategies that we're looking at is utilizing within our student skills, habits, and mindsets platform, this aspect called check-ins. So as a school can do, rather than waiting on these bi-monthly survey administrations, they can do weekly, monthly check-ins through that skills, habits, and mindsets platform, and even have the specific survey question that they receive, or create specific questions for their schools. It could be multiple choice, or it could also be open response. So one of the initiatives that we're having in our data is if any schools that are off track in any of these indicators, to utilize that check-in process, and we'll train the staff to be able to do that. And really, rather than waiting on these biannual surveys, more frequent check-ins with our kids. And even in our, I believe it was the 4.2 supplemental report, kids were asking for this. They were saying, I wish teachers would check in on me more. I wish counselors would check on me more. They're wanting that frequent check-in process. And so that opportunity gives our students an opportunity to give their voice a little bit more. Another exciting aspect to collect student voice that we are looking to enhance even further is our principal advisory councils. This year, our principal advisory councils, the stories that we hear from the principals, and being able to even attend some of these principal advisory councils in person to listen to the kiddos is phenomenal. And a lot of the principals contribute the success of not just goal 4, but goal 1, goal 2, depending on if it's elementary or middle, based on those student responses in those advisories. We even had a school that utilized the principal advisory council as part of their budgeting process. So they collected student voice in the budgeting process. And so we're really impressed with the advocacy of the students, and what we are seeing from the principal advisory councils are students building the confidence, the self-efficacy, and also a social awareness and advocacy of their student peers. A lot of the decisions they are making at one of the schools, they were saying, I know I don't need this, but I know that my friends need this. And so they were talking about it. And so it is just amazing. And what's beautiful about this too is it's not just our secondary students' voices, that because they're a lot older, there's some elementaries that have kinders and first graders in there, and they will tell you truthfully what's going on in their schools. And so those have been some of the amazing things. So what we're going to do this year, we gave schools a monthly script with questions that they would be able to do and kind of build upon that. Now what we're going to do is be a little bit more intentional with our monthly advisory council lesson plans, I guess you could say. Be a little bit more intentional with how now do we leverage student voice for transformation and not just for a check-in. Really build in our leaders on our campuses. And we've seen, I mean, one of the student champions today from the School Advisory Council, she was recruited by the students because of her structures for collecting voice and advocacy for kids. And so I foresee that the Principal Advisory Council in itself is going to be an amazing structure that we will continue to build upon to incorporate student voice, not only in our district initiatives, but site-specific initiatives.
I have another question, but I'm going to hold that because if it's all right, can I do a follow-up to that one question? So, you've been mentioning a lot of like resources that you're going to be giving to like the Principal Advisory Council and to the schools and stuff like that. So, my question is around like guardrail 5, where we are incorporating staff voice. Are you incorporating specifically like interim guardrail 5.2 says the percentage of teaching staff who report that the district provides adequate school resources will increase from X to Y. So how are you ensuring that the resources that you are utilizing have incorporated that staff voice?
Madam President, Member Jackson, members of the board, Superintendent Dr. Blakey, I'd like to give you a specific example to that. And one of the strategies that you will see is the middle school Where We Belong project. And I say this with all the affection I can. It's hard to get a group of middle school principals excited about anything as a whole. It was inspiring to see a group of middle school principals come back week before last. I believe they went to Arizona to be trained, a week-long training on the Where We Belong project with train the trainer, tangible next steps on how they can take this to their middle school and engage in transformation. It kind of gets to what Member Benavides was alluding to a little bit ago in the individual adult to student relationship and really facilitating a transformation to culture in the middle school level. We were able to fund and send all of these middle school principals to this training with that very guardrail in mind, because we knew that these principals were having to come back and they were going to have to implement something that is not a change in approach, but it's the specificity for that approach. And we wanted to enable and give the principals the tools that they could then give to the teachers so that we could realize something and allow it to grow roots. So I think that's a really good example, and it was really inspiring, as I've mentioned, to see these middle school principals come back and talk among themselves. And it's kind of like really jovial or excited principals talking in the corner at the principal meeting today about the potential for this work at the middle school level. As we can see in interim goal 4.2, some intentionality needs to be given to our secondary schools. And that's calling out to us in the area of self-regulation. And this specific wraparound resource and funding to go for transforming our middle schools is an example to your point.
Board Member Jackson, some of what to really target the guardrail with it, we go to the school's instructional councils to decide if it's something that they want to use as resource. So Dr. Salazar, for example, can have all of these resources. It can go to the instructional council, and then the buy-in kind of comes with whether the instructional council wants to use this resource, so that it's the school has a say, but we're able to provide the resources that could happen. With the web program, that was an example of we had middle schools be able to bring it to their instructional councils if they want to do it. We had a lot that wanted to that we didn't know if we could afford it. So we were able to expand the budget to allow for all middle schools to do it. But the connection between the resources and the input from staff really happens at the instructional council level.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate it. Oh, sorry, I see you reaching.
One more just to add to that, Madam President, Board Member Jackson, Superintendent Blakey. What I would also say is a lot of these resources that are being, we are actually collecting qualitative data prior to developing these. So for example, the reimagining the advisory resources, we sent surveys to principals, teachers, and students to collect how would they reimagine advisory and their lessons that are part of that. So that's just an example of one. Another one is with the pre-K through third grade scope and sequence, that is also being looked at as with teachers and getting their voice prior to any, and that's why a lot of the rollouts are happening next year, is a lot of it we're collecting voice prior to make sure that we're ready to roll it out for implementation next year.
Just a point of personal privilege, the web program is fabulous and phenomenal. So I'm glad that that's going to go to all the middle schools. I'll hold my second question.
I was going to ask a question, but I think I'm going to defer to anybody on video who might have a question.
And so by anybody, we mean board members.
Well,
So,
board member Astorga or board member Tomorito. Yeah, and I think
I do. I have a question. And my question falls under, and I just want to commend the staff for including our children with disabilities, especially when we're talking about the kids in the elementary and middle school. So my question comes to, with these 78 students, middle school, hold on. So given the 75 middle and elementary special education students, they shared their concerns about their unique educational needs. What strategic plan will you implement to gather comparable insights from high school students with disabilities, ensuring their perspectives are equally recognized and informs future decision-making?
Board member Ronaldo Tomarito, are you referring to the special education intensive support adaptation?
Yes, I'm sorry. Yeah, the 4.1 page 7, and it is the special education intensive support adaptation resource. Because you had 78 students there. They were mostly elementary and a few middle school students with severe cognitive abilities. And thank you for doing that and including that in this report. I just wanted to know more about, as we're moving forward, especially since high school students with disabilities were not in this particular survey, just how are you going to take those particulars and what you recognize now with elementary and middle and include the high school students? How will you do that differently? What's your strategy for that?
Thank you, board member Ronaldo Tomarito. So this initiative actually was fostered or realized by our fall progress monitoring conversation that we had, and with especially the call to action from board member Dominguez and saying that we really need to look at who is taking these surveys. So I do appreciate that. After that meeting, we had a conversation about looking at special education, specifically our high needs students that are in district programs. So like our students in IGS and SES, those district programs. And we actually also met with the vendor of the Skills, Habits, and Mindsets platform to really look at how do we add accommodations and modifications to this survey for those really unique needs, which I believe is about 1% of our student population in APS. And what we did was the vendor said, we don't have anything like that, which for us was an unacceptable answer. And so we said, we have to do something. And so meeting with the amazing special education department and brainstorming ideas on how we can truly include those voices, because we want to make sure all voices are included in our surveys. And so we ended up developing our own unique way of collecting the data using those survey responses. And so what we did was we were able to work with our elementary. So we wanted to start with our elementary first, third, fourth, and fifth, and develop a very unique way of supporting the teachers and supporting the students to be able to take this survey. And if you look at our supplemental data on our supplemental report for 4.1, in there, I included the feedback survey because we had those students take the survey, And I also wanted to include the teacher feedback because we also surveyed the teachers after to see how we can enhance this process before we start rolling it out to secondary. So you'll be able to see the positive feedback from the teachers about this process, and then also areas of growth from the teachers. And so that was a response that we really wanted to see is how do we make this process better? And also use this feedback, work with the vendor to make sure that these accommodation modifications are part of the platform rather than us uploading these surveys. So what we did was we uploaded the surveys into the platform and the vendor entered them into the system. So we are working with the vendor to really make sure that next year there are these accommodations and modifications based on our process that we developed in Albuquerque Public Schools. And so using the feedback from the teachers. And so this is where we're looking at now next year, not only just elementary, middle school, and high school, but making sure all those kids have access to it. And the reason why we have a couple middle schools involved is because I had a few principals reach out and say, how do I collect this voice? And I said, well, we're piloting this in elementary. So if you want to try, and they said, yes, let's do it. Because it's the same, it's the same questions, except for a few questions in the survey that are the same for secondary. And so that is how we are going to leverage this next year, is making sure all students have access to this and working with the vendor to make sure that it's in the platform. So it's not another thing that teachers have to do, which was this process. Based on the feedback that we're really looking to make sure that this is accessible next year.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
I have a question, if I may. First of all, this was very exciting to read, this progress monitoring report, because I could just see the wheels turning, expanding, and really taking to heart what we heard tonight, that we're not getting anywhere unless goal 4 comes first. And so I so appreciate the work that you've done on this. And so just know that as I have to bring up this question, while our Native Americans are demonstrating a high level of self-regulation, given the recent a high level of self-regulation as reported here in the answer to I think is number 11, question number 11, 4.2. I have received an alarming amount of reports from Native American parents. And I think we also heard from a few during public forum. And then I heard more at the recent Monday night banquet celebration of graduating seniors. There's a rise in reports on bullying among our Native Americans. And so while they are doing great in self-regulation, that number all of a sudden became, to me, in light of these reports, I looked at it differently. They're working really hard to hold it together. So my question is, what strategies can the district use to address the concern? And I realize that will require a deep dive because I have no idea whether it's in the secondary or in the primary level. But I think, so I'll keep the question. What strategies do you have currently that you can implement to address this problem?
I think that Board Member Dominguez and members of the board, I would think that that would be measured more in the belonging that Dr. Salazar talked about. So if we look at these as the data measuring the skills we're looking at, we don't see that come up because we don't see a gap in that area. But if we're talking about bullying, usually that comes up in a sense of belonging, which we're not measuring as part of the goal, but it's a measure. And that's, I think, why Dr. Salazar pointed that out too, is we look at at the sense of belonging as like an underlying measure, like a secondary measure to make sure that students feel a sense of belonging to then come to the realization in all of these other skills. So I think working more on schools looking at that sense of belonging. And as Dr. Salazar said, the key really is in this principal advisory group that each school has and really listening to the voices of the students, because the students have really been able to open up to the principals in that group and find a trusting place where they're able to also come up with solutions. I think the other part for middle school particularly is where we overall see a larger number of students that don't feel a sense of belonging or bullying. We are implementing that where everyone belongs, because it's really how we at least start at the full picture of a strategy of how we're going to create spaces for students as they enter 6th grade to feel that sense of belonging, to be connected to an 8th grade mentor so that they have somebody that they're attached to. And so that's like the larger strategy. And then within that, we can measure the sense of belonging, and the schools are able, we don't report out the sense of belonging, but the schools are able to see that.
And I thank you for that answer. I just felt it necessary to bring this up. And I know it requires a targeted approach somehow.
And just briefly, Board Member Dominguez, we also, this spring data, we also had 20 schools that had growth in all aspects of skills, habits, and mindsets for Native American students. Those principals were interviewed, and there's some strategies that I think, talking with Superintendent Dr. Blakey, that we're seeing as bright spots specifically for increasing Native American student outcomes.
Thank you.
Should I ask it? Board Member Astorga, I see that you're on Zoom. Did you want to ask a question? No pressure. We know that you are very busy right now with other things.
Yes, I do have a question. Thank you. It's good to see all of you and hear your voices. So my question is, in both 4.1 and 4.2, there is a common theme or root cause surrounding building student and teacher relationships and how it will enhance school climate, which will in turn boost how students feel about their skills, habits, and mindsets. So in 4.1 planned action section, there's a mention about schools attending a 2-day training in February that focused on concepts of school climate, relationships with adults, and a sense of belonging. So can you expand on how the strategies learned in this training will be implemented in the classroom in order to target the need for building student-teacher relationships?
Thank you. Thank you, Board Member Astorga. I would say that relationships are the on-ramp of learning, and every child and building relationships also doesn't happen by chance. It's very intentional. And so what the training that is happening through is restorative approaches. And the first 2 days is all about building relationships and specific strategies to build relationships, knowing the student by the name, knowing the student's circumstances, leveraging a lot of data points that we have as a district to be able to also see what are some other sides of the story to be able to build those relationships. And so those are the strategies, and one of the strategies that they utilize as well is how to build circles and utilize circles effectively in that restorative approaches training.
Good evening, Board President Gonzalez and Board Members, Superintendent Blakey. I just wanted to add a nuance that I think is really important to our approach to restorative approaches, and that is that restorative approaches is a proactive way of building our school climate. I think oftentimes when we think about restorative approaches, restorative justice, we're thinking about what happens after a student makes a mistake. And that is indeed part of it, but we're looking at it as a much more of a, let's build relationships. Let's help the adults know how to build those relationships with students. And that way we're creating environments where it's safe to take risks. It's safe to make a mistake. You're okay. We're still with you. But then we can actually restore after the fact. Because if we don't create that sort of stability in the environment, it's actually really hard to do the restorative work after the fact. So the training, and I appreciate Dr. Salazar's examples, really building on, for example, circles, kind of a really well-known strategy, but how does that build relationships between kids and adults? It's a really critical aspect of establishing school climate.
I appreciate your answers and the intentionality behind it. And just a follow-up, I know that we are working like with the teachers to build that, but there is also a need from students to understand how to build relationships with the adults in their classroom. So is there any work with students that you are doing?
Thank you, Board Member Astorga. One of the things that I would like to look at it specifically with middle school is the web program, where they're actually peer mentors as students working with students. So for example, we have 8th grade students that would be mentoring 6th grade students. And we are excited to see what the training suffice from the Arizona training that all the middle school principals and a team of teachers went to as well. And so that is an example of how students would be building the capacity amongst each others in relationship building.
I could give one more quick example. We've been talking about, particularly among our elementaries, developing their peer mediation skills. So when there is conflict on the playground in the classroom, that the students are trained to not necessarily react to one another, but be in a more self-regulated space and mediate the conflict on their own.
Great, thank you. I think it's super important, and I appreciate that you will gave us some of those quotes as well as part of the report, because it's good to see what students are saying directly and how the strategies and the programs that you're using is directly tied to what students are saying. And part of that is saying, I want my teachers to care more or ask me more questions about how I'm doing, and seeing that put in action is exactly what we want. So thank you.
And Board Member Astorga, members of the board, to further that with the strategy, Dr. Salazar did present this information to our senior leadership team to review. So I think it's really important to note that these reports don't just stop here, but we actually were using those open-ended response as a leadership team, so that as all elements in the district are working on strategies for next year, they're able to use the same information, and the open-ended responses that he went over with us really helped the leadership team hear the student voice and how they're making decisions for next year. So I think it's important to note how student voice is really working through the whole district.
Great.
Thank you, Member Astorga. Do you have anything else?
No, that's it. Thank you.
President Gonzalez.
Yes, thank you, Member Benavides. So I was folding laundry this past week, and I had an opportunity to listen to a podcast, which the APS team prepared about Goal 4. And yes, there were many times that my children walked in the room and are like, "What are you listening to?" But I appreciate that, because that podcast was well produced, very comprehensive, very entertaining even, and did answer all of the questions I think that I could have possibly had. However, I will ask one anyway, which is, I think sometimes there can be an either real or perceived trade-off between things that get measured with standardized measures, such as these goals, these skills, habits, and mindsets, and our student outcomes focused goals overall, and other things that don't get measured in standardized ways, like access to community gardens, like fine arts, like ethnic studies. And we've talked about this before on the board in terms of how do we make sure that that trade-off is not happening. And so my question to you, because I do feel like your answer to that question in the past has been great. My question is, what strategies are in place to make sure that that trade-off is not happening at the classroom level? That there is not a trade-off of things that kids really love and enjoy for the focus on measurement.
I can start while they argue over the microphone. Board President Gonzalez, I think that the important thing to know is that as you know, these data that we look at is really like the high level of what you're seeing. When the schools look at these data, they're able to really look at how all of the different aspects of their school are promoting this sense. I think we heard a principal tonight from Eugene Field talk about that a little bit, in how they're looking at what does contribute to the success of their school. How do we see adding, for example, art and music into our elementary schools? How do we see that as a reflection of seeing this increase of perseverance? You know, so we're really looking at the schools really can dig in to see like, what is it they're doing? We've seen schools that have Genius Hour, for example, the students will have higher scores on certain elements of the skills, habits, and mindsets, because we're not correlating it directly. Like, does this make you feel this way? Because it's underneath. And so looking at this at a very high level, then the schools are able to look underneath and say, are we giving access to all of our students? We'll see a lot of that in the open response too, as far as what students are saying is making them feel connected. Would you all like to add as you fight over the microphone?
Madam President, members of the board, Dr. Blakey, I would say, first of all, that I didn't realize that the podcast made it live, but that's a big deal, and I'm glad that it made prime time. I'm glad you enjoyed it. I also would say that I think one of the perhaps unintended consequences of the work of progress monitoring is the renewed and profound use of data and multiple pieces of data. One of which I would like to lift up and celebrate in direct response to your question is student voice in their course requests. So we have a common card that is baseline for every one of our high schools. For example, we've talked about this in the past, where we now are able to more intentionally look at the notion of equity throughout our district, to really harness their voice, their desires, to ensure relevance in their high school education, for example, to make sure that we are offering the courses that they are interested in, be it fine arts, robotics, STEM, what have you. And if for whatever reason at a given school that is not being offered, the onus is on us to change our adult behavior, to strike the connection for that student. So I think that is a very concrete example of how we at the secondary high school level specifically are connecting with the relevancy of student desire in their education. The other piece that I would like to bring up at the elementary school level as an example, and Dr. Blakey alluded to it, is the Genius Hour work, where we're really looking at a 6-week cycle, for example, a school looking and measuring and asking, what are you interested in? Building a kite and flying it. What is the science behind that? Really looking to see how do I build a robot and make it function? And what is the science behind that? How do I quilt? How do I write poetry? These are all different aspects of adult to student connection. I think one of the things that's inspiring about the Genius Hour work that really has taken off, I would say, in large measure since its infancy, is a student realizing, wow, Miss Gonzalez is interested in, and she brings that to her at Genius Hour. That's a profound connection in terms of an enhancement to the curriculum.
Thank you, Madam President. What I would just add to that is that in our principal workshop today, actually, we told principals to make sure that they look at the data in multiple ways and see what overarching data that you can have that's quantitative. So looking at our goal 1, goal 2, goal 3, goal 4, which is pretty much all quantitative data, to be able to give yourself some patterns and a point of direction. Then look at student group data within those groups to be able to give you a little bit more focused direction. And then look at the open responses and student feedback, student voice, to be able to understand the experiences and mindsets of students, staff, community, to inform and shape next steps and include that into the 90-day plan. So those are actually, when you're thinking about your data question, we actually we told the principals today to think about that and make sure that doesn't get lost.
Can't be left out, Madam President. I think I just really appreciate elevating all these strategies that are happening, data, Genius Hour, you know, all the initiatives that we want to put in place. But one thing that my team, I think, gets really sick of hearing from me is the word coherence. We're always looking about, it's not this thing and then this thing and then this thing, but rather it's a whole strategy, and we're always looking for entry points into one another's strategies. And I appreciate, and I think you see it in the progress monitoring, the work that's being done between goal 1 and goal 4, for example. So it's not that we're just only doing reading at this time, and now we're only looking at skills, habits, and mindsets, but really helping everybody, our classroom practitioners, our community members, our principals understand, like, you find the on-ramp, and the student voice has been, I think, probably the greatest asset that we've been able to bring to that on-ramp in terms of whether it's offering more courses to students based on their interests, or you know, elevating, you get to pick your Genius Hour. Everything is still happening at the same time. And so just thinking about it as one big picture, we may progress monitor it in small bits. And so it feels like maybe it's just this, but it's not. It is a really large scale initiative where everybody is coming together to support one another to build students and all of the goals.
I have another question, but we can go back around however you want. Go ahead and ask your second question.
All right. So my second question, actually, Courtney, you had a second question. You had a second. That's right. Member Jackson had a second question.
I'm sorry, who's the facilitator here?
Go ahead.
So yeah, my second question was also related to both of the interim goals, 4.1 and 4.2. Can you tell me a little bit more about how your approach of comprehensive counseling is going to lead to increased student outcomes? And specifically, I'm thinking of something that was in the data that you gave to us that really stood out to me, and it was, you just brought it up, Ms. Jett, the connection versus compliance. What are we doing to ensure that the counseling that our students are receiving to improve student outcomes is not just to check the box, that it's actually making a connection to drive a better outcome for goal 4?
You got this.
Thank you, Board Member Jackson. We recently had our end of the year counselor meeting where all counselors were there, and amazing things have happened in this district as far as the amazing collaboration between the administrators and the counselors. We sent a team of counselors and administrators to a conference, and all of them came back on what they're going to do next year. And a lot of that was about instilling systems and structures to be more aligned towards what truly is a comprehensive counseling model. And so one of the things that we're looking at is, how do we incorporate that into all our schools where it's counseling is consistent across the district, the expectations are consistent, but to also give the schools a model to strive for, which is the ASCA model, which is being ramp ready. What that means is that you are able to have evidence that your counseling programs have led to measurable positive student outcomes. That is ramp ready. Right now, we have 2 in our district out of 146 schools. Our goal and what we're looking at as far as our district is support those schools that are willing. And we had a lot of schools that shared to all counselors that they want to be ramp ready and get ready for that and work as a team to get there because it's a very rigorous application and process. And we want to see if we can get 20 schools in 26, 27 ramp ready. That's going to be our internal little measure that we're going to be putting. And we believe that we can do that because we have a lot of counselors that are pretty much already there, but with some support and leverage of resources to make sure that their model aligns to the standards for counseling, and then also making sure that they follow the ASCA model requirements to be able to do that. And so that is what the comprehensive counseling more is. How does your counseling give evidence to increase student outcomes?
And can I just clarify, is that just for, 'cause I do know where one of the ramp ready schools is. Is that just for elementary schools or is that going to be across the K-12 spectrum?
K-12.
Okay, thank you.
President Gonzalez, or I'm sorry, we can go back through. Does anybody on Zoom have a question? Board members? No? Okay. Silence says everything.
I have another question. And this is with regard to 4.1, restorative, or no, this is 4.2? Restorative approaches section. How, you talk about building the framework and aligning practices, but I guess that's my question. How are you building the framework and to what are you aligning the restorative approaches practice? That I wasn't clear about that.
Thank you, Board Member Dominguez. So we currently have a MOU in our negotiated agreement about restorative practices, and it's actually outdated. It was supposed to be completed. And so we are resurfacing that MOU and in collaboration with multiple stakeholders. So there we have a district task force that is aligned with really looking at restorative approaches, which consists of teachers, principals, district personnel to really look at what we have done in the past, what we did last year with our trainings, and how do we align that to the skills, habits, and mindsets of our goals for Goal 4. And so that task force has been meeting throughout the year. And actually the task force is how we came up with the 8 schools that are the early adopters, is either they were a principal in the task force or a teacher part of the task force. To be able to really look at how do we look at implementation. Our latest meeting that we had, we met as a team to really look at benchmarks of implementation for a site. So it's school-wide implementation of restorative approaches. So that's where a lot of the work is occurring, and we will continue that work throughout the years to satisfy that MOU.
So this fits perfectly. I have a follow-up to that. So what data was looked at to select the pilot schools for the initial cohort, and how does it align to the overall strategy? But that's kind of a technical embedded with.
Yeah, so this task force was really looked at. We wanted so we were working with our collaboration with our teacher union to really see how we can who could be a part of this. So the teacher union actually selected 4 teachers, and we were responsible for selecting 4 principals. And so when we're working with the assistant superintendents, we really looked at which principals already have the growth mindset for restorative approaches. And so that's how those schools were selected. They were either selected by the teacher or by the principal. And then next year, the cohorts we'll be looking at the performance framework and other indicators for those cohorts. We haven't selected those schools yet.
Thank you.
Great. So my question is essentially, what more do we need to know about public, family, and community understanding or not of goal 4. So specifically, as we speak about skills, habits, and mindsets, I asked about at the district level, at the school level. And so this is, what more do we need to know about what the community understands or doesn't understand or believes, parents in particular, about this goal, this work, these strategies?
Board President Gonzalez, members of the board, that's a great question. And the first thing I thought was, I think it would be wise of us to bring this work to our advisor. So I have a parent advisory council. The principals all have advisory councils. So I really don't think that we know what they need, but we need to ask them. And so I think it's a great topic to start with our parent advisory council as far as what do they understand about it and how can we connect it more. So I think that that's a great question, and it gives us, in going into the next year, now how do we get a lot of input from our students in the principal advisory councils. They like to give, once the principal started like talking to them and then following up with what they said, they were like, oh wait, we can ask for something else. And so that's been great. But I think with our parent advisory council, that's a great conversation to have to start with them, is their understanding of it and how we can connect it to them.
President Gonzalez, I think in addition to that, what I thought of when you asked the question, which I really appreciate, because this is a place where I think we can get stronger, is the standards-based progress report that we've been working on. So again, that coherence, again, and it's example of goal 1 and goal 4 working together. But in that development of a revised standards-based progress report that truly reflects our priority standards in academics, we also added skills, habits, and mindsets indicators. And so beginning next year, as we do parent-teacher conferences, as we're using that report, we will be engaging more and more with families regarding skills, habits, and mindsets.
Madam President, I would also just add that I'm also responsible for Guardrail 4, and part of that is collecting voices. And so Principal Advisory Councils collects a lot of the student voice. What I would say for families and communities is we have an interim guardrail for family representation on instructional councils, and we're pushing all schools to have that representation. That would be another avenue to be on the representation for their IC.
Do we have any final questions? Board Member Dominguez.
But, okay, one final question, and it's a strategic one, and it's under the section point of contact for students in McKinney-Vento and foster care programs. The report notes efforts to expand partnerships with community agencies to enhance wraparound support. Which agencies are currently involved in this work, and how are they selected or evaluated for impact?
Thank you, Board Member Dominguez. I would say that our McKinney-Vento program has been highlighted by the state as very exceptional. And so much so that they have encouraged us to share what we are doing in our McKinney-Vento programming. I would say that there are multiple agencies, city, county, a lot of, so it would be hard to narrow and say some without leaving some out, but there's a lot of collaboration.
I had the pleasure, that was kind of I was hoping you'd know, it's 200. I happened to sit with Crystal Wilson. Wow, powerhouse. So, yeah. And so, but the question remains, and maybe we don't know at this point, but how are they selected or evaluated for impact?
Thank you, Board Member Dominguez. I think most of that work is happening through our community school coordinators and councils. We have done a lot of work around asset mapping school community to see what is available for families, particularly in the community, so it's accessible. And so, going through that strategy of asset mapping, what is here and who are the partners who are wanting to come into the school in order to really make that difference.
a new term. But I'll research it first. Thank you.
Okay, well, I think that concludes our questions, but I did want to make one final comment that in your comments about restorative approaches, Chief Academic Officer Jett, you did mention creating an environment wherein it's okay for somebody to make a mistake or to feel comfortable. And I think really what you're referring to, that I don't think anybody's said the word, is psychological safety. And it's something that I know we are trying to facilitate in the workplace. And I know it's something that here in the board, we are trying to make it a safe environment for people to inquire about things, make mistakes, be curious, and know that the people that they're surrounded with are going to help them in that endeavor, and we're going to help each other. And so I think that that is so important. And thank you so much for your efforts to do that for our students, because if they don't feel safe psychologically and physically, we can't do anything else for them. So thank you. Okay, thank you, board members, for this productive conversation. Now we must vote on whether or not we will accept this monitoring report. As a point of clarity, we are voting to accept this report as a formal acknowledgement that we had a satisfactory conversation with the superintendent and have a deeper understanding of how the current reality for students lined up with our vision for them. In order to accept, we must answer yes to the following 3 questions. Does the reality of this report meet our vision of the goal? Is there growth toward the vision? Is there a strategy and plan sufficient to cause growth toward the vision? If the answer to all 3 is yes, then the board can accept the monitoring report confident that data is accurate and the superintendent is performing. Yes, do we have a yes from everyone? Yes? Okay. At this point, Board President Gonzalez, I believe we are ready to entertain a motion to accept this monitoring report.
Great. Thank you, Member Benavides, for facilitating that progress monitoring session, and I will entertain a motion to accept the report.
I move we accept the progress monitoring reports for interim goals 4.1 and 4.2, skills, habits, and mindset for life success. This is Member Jackson.
I'll second, and this is Member Dominguez.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. Can we have a roll call vote, please?
Benavides?
Yes.
Courtney Jackson?
Yes.
Ina Dominguez?
Yes.
Ronaldo Tomorito?
Yes.
Nella Storga?
Yes.
Daniel Gonzalez?
Yes, so the motion carries. And again, thank you for all of the work, important work that you, our schools and teachers are doing, and everyone in APS on our skills, habits, and mindsets. The next item on our agenda is agenda item 6.2, which is to consider approval of revised progress monitoring calendar. And our presenter for this is Superintendent Blakey.
Thank you, President Gonzalez, members of the board. Tonight, you're being asked to adopt the revised progress monitoring calendar that outlines when each goal, interim goal, and guardrail will be monitored through 2028. The updated calendar ensures that each goal is monitored at least 4 times annually, with no more than 2 goals scheduled per month. These adjustments are meant to support consistent, focused conversations about student progress and to align monitoring with the availability of meaningful data, and we ask for your approval on the calendar.
Great, thank you, Superintendent Blakey. Are there any questions about the monitoring calendar?
I do have a question.
Yes, Member Dominguez.
I'm looking for it. And maybe it's just, I'll just read. It's an observation, but also a request. And I would ask that there's a reference to upcoming, or there was a reference to how we make adjustments to the calendar, evidenced by the recent budget meeting schedule. We worked that in, and that was an important meeting engagement to have. But it was compliance driven. And so I would ask that upcoming adjustments take into account 3 other qualitative concerns. First, explaining interim goals and guardrails more effectively to our community. Feedback so that we can get feedback regarding the implementation of those interims. And a special focus on Pueblo, the Pueblo governors and Navajo Nation's input. And that's just based on conversations I've had. So just for future reference, as if there's a need, when there's a need to make adjustments.
Thank you for that. As just a point of clarification, are you speaking to the progress monitoring calendar 6.2 or to the two-year Board of Education engagement and outreach calendar, which is agenda item 7.2?
And they're blended, right? I think I read somewhere that they're aligned sometimes. And so because they're aligned, I felt this was an opportunity to make that observation.
Okay, thank you for that observation. Are there other questions about the progress monitoring calendar? Any questions from our online members? Great, thank you. Can we have a, we already have a motion in a second. So can we have a roll call vote? Well, we don't have a motion in a second. Sorry, I thought we took it before we considered. Can we have a motion to consider approval of the revised progress monitoring calendar?
I move to approve the revised progress monitoring calendar.
I'll second. This is Member Jackson.
Thank you. We have a motion from Member Dominguez and a second from Member Jackson. Can we have a roll call vote, please?
Heather Benavides.
Yes.
Courtney Jackson.
Yes.
Nina Dominguez.
Yes.
Imelda Tomorito.
Yes.
Nella Storga.
Yes.
Daniel Gonzalez.
Yes, so the motion carries and we have a new progress monitoring calendar. Thank you to the superintendent for your work on that and your team as well. We will move on to agenda item 7, which is to consider approval of the consent agenda. This is approval for items 7.1 through 7.14. Can we have a motion and a second?
I move we approve the consent agenda items for items 7.1 through 7.14. This is Member Jackson.
I'll second. This is Member Benavides.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. Can we have a roll call vote, please?
Benavides. Yes. Courtney Jackson.
Yes.
Nina Dominguez.
Yes.
Imelda Tomorito.
Yes.
Nella Storga.
Yes.
Daniel Gonzalez.
Yes, so that motion carries as well. We will move on to agenda item 8, which is our action items. For this, we will consider approval of the proposed Albuquerque Public Schools budget for fiscal year 2026, including our charter school budgets and granting approval for board member signatures on all necessary documents. Dr. Blakey will begin this presentation for us, but we also have joining us Renette Apolaca, our Chief Financial Officer, Rosalinda Montoya, Executive Director of Budget and Strategic Planning, Dr. Antonio Gonzalez, who's the Deputy of Leadership and Learning, and Miss Melanie Blay, who's in charge of federal, state, and district budget stuff.
Thank
All
you.
right, Dr. Blakey, you have the floor.
President Gonzalez, members of the board, tonight the Board of Education is asked to approve the Albuquerque Public Schools budget for the fiscal year 2026. At its core, this budget is about one thing, and that is our students. It reflects months of thoughtful planning, meaningful community engagement, and collaboration with school leaders, staff, and students, all with the shared goal of better serving the young people entrusted to us. The proposed budget aligns with the board's goals and guardrails and is built to support student success amid declining enrollment, changes to state funding formula, and the expiration of our ESSER funds. It invests in the services that matter most to students and families, including academic supports that ensure strong instruction and access to grade level learning in every classroom. The budget also strengthens our focus on social and emotional well-being of our students, and it allocates resources more equitably, providing increased support to schools with greater needs while offering more flexibility to schools that are demonstrating strong outcomes. In addition, the budget includes a $20 million investment from the district's fund balance to support the transition to a modern enterprise resource planning system, a move that will help improve efficiency and transparency across the organization. This is a student-centered budget that keeps our focus where it belongs, on creating the learning environments, opportunities, and support for every child need to thrive. And with that, I stand for questions with Chief Finance Officer Bennett Apodaca and the rest of the budget team.
Thank you, Dr. Blakey, and thank you to the full budget team and all of APS leadership for the work that you've done over the past several months to adapt to our new budget policy, which required monthly presentations starting in January, and a whole lot of other stuff required from you as well. So thank you for that. Speaking for myself, do think the process has been very clear and coherent, and very helpful to have those updates all along the way as you've been going through the budget development process. So hopefully we're all clear on the budget, but I will open it up to questions from members of the board, and I will start from my left. Member Dominguez.
May I hold off just a bit?
Absolutely. I will move to my right. Member Jackson.
Well, I was looking through, thankfully we are kind of given some like coaching to help on to make sure that as we are moving through this budget process in which we are realigning to focusing on student outcomes. Thankfully, I was able to look at some like suggested questions of things that we really need to be making sure that we're looking out for as this budget is presented. And as I was going down the list, you guys have answered a lot of the questions already. So I'm having, I think that's something to be commended. I think the first one that said, is there strategic clarity about what new strategies are being added? Well, you answered that question last time. So I don't want to ask a question just for the sake of asking that. You have given us data, you've given us examples, you've answered every question that I have had. So that's a long way of me saying I will absolutely approve this budget, because I think that, again, we as a board have asked you to align to student outcomes, and you have done that.
Great own job, and thank you for your patience tonight. You guys have been wonderful. We really appreciate you.
Hard work and putting this together, and for the multiple presentations that you've given us and the community and all that work. So thank you.
Yes, thank you for that. Member Dominguez.
Okay. And I asked this question in part because I think the public needs to know just how hard it's been, because there are lots of rumblings. Schools have reached out, PTAs have reached out, they've lost money, and these are the challenges of being focused on our goals, right? Having a budget align with our goals. And so where and how does the budget prioritize improving the quality of instruction in the areas of our goals, especially for goals 1, 2, and 4? Because I get the sense that those have been the areas that, but feel free to address goal 3 as well.
President Gonzalez and Board Member Dominguez, members of the board, I think we've tried to give you enough information, and as the schools have done their budgets, to really align the work of the goals to the budget. So everything that they are doing should have a through line to which goal they're working on. Some examples of that could be with schools that are struggling, having a transformational coach or a community school coordinator, looking at how we are working on goal 4 by providing behavior redirectors to our elementary schools, really looking at if something is not aligned specifically to a goal, is it something that we necessarily need? And so as the schools have been working on their budgets, I think they're at a really good place right now to be able to see if they have an influx of enrollment, that they would get more FTE, which we've been adjusting along the way. And I really have to give credit to our budget team primarily for getting this work done at the same time as schools were planning. And I think it's one of the first times I've seen that really work in conjunction. I think this might be the earliest we've ever submitted a budget to the Public Education Department, which is why Ms. Montoya and Ms. Apodaca are probably really exhausted right now, because I mean, if you think about it, the legislative session just ended. The governor signed the bill less than a month ago. So we've been pretty proactive in how we've been working with the schools. So there wasn't really a set time to be able to say, this is specifically for goal 1, because throughout the year, we've been working with schools on aligning their resources to impact their goals. And so there's not really like exactly this is going to measure goal 1, but really looking strategically as how we are aligning our resources, be it instructional materials, FTE, other resources that will specifically be aligned to the goals. Even in the, as you see through the finance committee, if schools are putting in requisitions, they're aligned to goals. Everybody has it on their mind as far as how is what you're spending aligned to goals. Dr. Gonzalez and the assistant superintendents have sat down with principals when they do have budgets that might be less than they had before, to really talk through, how is this aligned to your goals? And when you have to make a cut, how is it aligned to your goals? So that happens at a very deep level with the assistant superintendents and the school principal as they are working through their budgets. Do you have anything to add?
And I think that last piece is especially important to note, because 90% of our budget does go to instruction. Yeah. And I would argue we need to double it, clearly, because parents want smaller class sizes and everything that we've heard in this boardroom before. But yes, thank you for all the hard work, and especially the two on the far right, because you've taken, you have private lives, and the last month have been so challenging. So.
And additionally, the other aspect that we really moved up was the transfers. And so, I mean, this team meets regularly to look over compliance now, which is something that usually happens in the fall, to be able to adjust FTE that we need to provide to a school now while they're scheduling. And so I've been really impressed with the team you see in front of you being able to collaborate, because they all work on different floors and different areas, but to be able to really put it all together, and the schools are able to get adjustments because of that transfer process. So all of these little pieces strategically have been put together so the budget didn't become a one-time thing this year.
And so I heard you moved a process from the fall to now?
We moved the transfer process to be much more robust, and we eliminated a step of bureaucratic step in it. So the schools are able to, while they make their schedules now, be able to see how many students they really are going to have for the fall. Typically, we make the adjustments to student enrollment in the fall, but because we're able to look at the student transfers right now, that we're able to balance a lot of the class sizes now in the spring, instead of waiting to do it while students are in classes in the fall.
But we know that, okay, so that's a great segue into another question. We know that in the fall, and it may change, but we know that in the fall, numbers just, those were the heaviest moments, the first 6 weeks. There's lots of movement. We get new enrollment. And so how are we set up to deal with that?
Because of our enrollment and this process, we're able to really get a handle of that ahead of time. So the numbers we have are more realistic now. Of course, there will always be people, moving in and out, But, you know, the budget that we have right now is based on last year's enrollment. And so as we get new adjustments, a lot of schools, if they benefit until the end of the year, if they are adjusted because they were based on they're based on this year's enrollment. Now, the flip side and what we're hoping for is we get more students. If we go up in enrollment in the fall, then we do have to adjust the budget as students come in. If we go down, then we see that hit at this time next year.
And is it flexibility for that in your system?
Yes, little, very, yeah,
Very
with
little.
compliance. We do put money aside for compliance.
Thank you.
Great, thank you, Member Dominguez, for those questions. I just had one question, but I have too many papers out here, which is related to ROI measures. And so we've talked a lot over the process of developing the budget, how you think about return on investment. My question is really, as we move from development to approval of budget into budget management, where does ROI come in, and how are you thinking about that in the context of of budget management, and what the Finance Committee in particular ought to be keeping an eye out for?
Madam President, thank you for that question. Superintendent Blakey. A couple of things. We are working with schools on the school side through the 90-day plan. Today at the principal meeting, there was 2 hours, an hour and a half, that was very connected to the 90-day plan and the school budget. One of the things that's being done differently, and Dr. Blakey alluded to it a little bit, was the budget as a working document. So although we're submitting it, we're signing it, we're saying this is what it looks like, it evolves constantly. And those of you who follow Finance Committee understand the transfers and how things work. We're tightening up when we are asking for additional FTE, when we're moving FTE, or when we're asking for money to be transferred. A lot of times on the budget side, the compliance side, it's very easy to say, I want to move $5,000 from professional development to supplies. That is allowable in the grant or on the compliance side. However, it does change the program side of things. And so we're looking at not just the compliance side, but the program side every time schools or departments are trying to move money, and or if they're moving or adding FTE, which is happening now. Schools submitted their budgets in March. They're saying, okay, I understand the promising practices. I want to move from a dean to a student success systems coordinator. And so we want to align everything to the budget. So it's consistent through the 90-day plans, through budget transfers. We're asking schools and departments to provide justifications and alignment as they go, while encouraging them to make those adjustments, because schools are evolving, enrollment evolves, and we want them to have the flexibility and the autonomy to do so.
In addition to that, Madam President, Superintendent Blakey, members of the board, I would say that the return on learning work that is begun and was shared in some detail last meeting is set to continue and be enhanced in the coming year in regards to program and materials, intervention materials specifically. We have a slate of programs and to be looked at, and a plan to really look at these and to really test the return on learning that we've come to really familiarize ourselves with as we move into next school year. So the idea is that we are really keeping what we can support at the district level as comprehensive but as narrow as possible, so that we are able to really support our diverse needs at the ground level. And if we are spending on a resource that the return on investment is low because of utilization, participation, whatever the case might be, we need to ask the tough questions, why not, and so on, so that we are able to be wise with the limited resources that we do have in place.
Thank you. And so I guess my question is maybe like 5 levels more tactical than that. So if you're doing work on return on learning and we are really looking at the 90-day plans and schools and departments are making their justifications, when transfer requests come to the Finance Committee, what processes, procedures are in place for the board to know that that return on investment, return on learning analysis has been a part of what's being presented as we think about the transfers?
I think that's through the approval process. So so we have program approval. So it will go to either Ms. Jett, Dr. Blea, Dr. Gonzalez for program approval. And so when it goes to them, they're able to see, is this a program that we're currently looking at that's approved, that's not? There have been instances this year where we have had budget come through for materials that we have found would not be a return on investment. And those go back so by the time it gets to you, it has been approved by the program side and by the finance side to make sure that it's a program that has been evaluated and then there are programs that are currently being evaluated that are kind of on hold. So schools then, if they put something, would be told that we aren't going to approve it at this time because this program is under evaluation.
And if I may add, Madam President, members of the board, Superintendent Blakey, through quarterly meetings with departments, we are asking that exact question. What is the return on learning? What is the impact on student outcomes? They're asked to bring the data with them as well as to speak to how this is changing that outcome and what the return on learning is. So when they present the budget now, they've done that, and then we're asking that same question, and it should align. And if it doesn't, that would raise the red flags.
Okay, thank you for that. That's super helpful. So we know by the time it gets to Finance Committee approval, you've had that conversation. That was really what I was trying to get to in terms of how ROI is integrated into management, not just development. Are there any other questions from the board on the budget? All right, then I will go ahead and entertain a motion for approval.
I move to approve the proposed Albuquerque Public Schools budget for fiscal year 2026, including charter schools budgets and granting approval for board member signatures on all necessary documents. This is Member Jackson.
I'll second. This is Board Member Dominguez.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. Can we have a roll call vote, please?
Heather Benavides?
Yes.
Courtney Jackson?
Yes.
Tina Dominguez?
Yes.
Ronaldo Tomorito?
Yes.
Danella Starga?
Yes.
Danielle Gonzalez?
Yes, and I just want to echo the appreciation for the finance team with a round of applause for all of the work that you have put into this. Relay that throughout City Center. Thank you. All right, with that, we will move on to agenda item number 9, which is the president's report. So we'll start with public forum and acknowledge again that public forum is not an opportunity for dialogue, but we do want each speaker to know that they were heard and that we are working with the administration on resolutions. Some of the issues that we heard tonight were related to skills, habits, and mindsets, related to explicit material in APS libraries, special education best practices, student outcomes focused governance, the budget, engagement with families and students, staffing at our schools, and panorama results specifically for McKinney-Vento students. We want to thank our public speakers for that and know that the administration takes those concerns, anything that has been weighed seriously. I want to also acknowledge that tis the season, it's graduation time. So graduation celebrations are already in full swing, which is kind of hard to believe, but last week we celebrated our first graduation with the accomplishments of the college and career high school graduates, so that was very exciting. Next week we will have the APS magnet school students. They will have their opportunity to shine, followed by the traditional high school graduations on the week of May 19th. So I hope that every member of the board and the staff can take the time to celebrate and applaud all of the hard work and dedication of our students, parents, teachers, and staff who have all played, and community members who have all played such a vital role in this journey. I know I speak for myself and for my fellow board members when I say we are really excited to join in the festivities. It's one of the most fun parts of being a board member. And being able to celebrate these remarkable students as they embark on all of their exciting new adventures. I'm so really excited about graduation. I do want to acknowledge we do have a couple of existing ad hoc committees. And so as a reminder, ad hoc committees are not standing or permanent committees. They're committees that have been charged with a specific task or deadline that they have to meet, and then they're dissolved. So we have 2 ad hoc committees who are currently active. I want to just provide an update on both of them. One is the Community Engagement and Outreach Ad Hoc Committee. as we all know, we approved a new community engagement calendar tonight. That calendar is pretty comprehensive, spans over 2 years, integrated the feedback that the board provided. So thank you for providing all that feedback, but also integrated a couple, some new stuff, new strategies, including a community training on effective governance. And so this community engagement ad hoc committee will continue to work to establish the framework for a community training on effective governance, which according to the calendar we just approved, will need to be completed by the end of July, which is kind of crazy because it's already May. So got to get working on that. The other is we do have an ad hoc committee on student voice. And I just wanted to share that when member Astorga returns, she will present the final recommendations from that committee. We have it tentatively calendared for August of this year, but feels especially timely given the presentation that we heard, or the comments, discussion we heard from the staff around how they're integrating student voice. And again, this is student voice into board decisions, and how do we integrate student voice with the board and all of our engagement and outreach work. And then, as announced in our weekly message, there was a request for volunteers to serve on a new ad hoc committee, which is focused on measuring the board's guardrails. So I have one volunteer for that. The deadline was May 2nd. So I need at least one other volunteer, otherwise I'll assign someone. So board members, don't beat down the door, but we're going to have that committee. Will be pretty clear process and deadline. But please let me know by Friday, otherwise I'll have to assign. I will get to assign a member. Related to community engagement, I am excited to share that we have, as folks know, a partnership with New Mexico United, and it's time of year again for the Schools Out celebration. It's going to be on Saturday, June 7th. New Mexico United will help us celebrate and acknowledge Goal 2, which is around math. So there is special pricing available for our APS community, which has been shared in APS newsletters, also shared on our board member social media pages. But if anyone is interested, Google APS School Night Out. But I'm sure it's also on our website. And just so folks know, money from every single ticket sold will go back to the APS Education Foundation. It's a lot of fun. There's going to be activities to celebrate math and Goal 2. So I hope everyone can either attend or promote it with your network, family, and community. Last but not least, our upcoming meetings. So due to the graduation events that are happening on the week of May 19th, the week of the May 19th meeting, we will not meet on May 19th. We will have a regular board meeting, however, on June 4th and June 18th. We also have an audit committee on Tuesday, June 24th, and a finance committee meeting on June 25th. And this concludes the president's report. So our next Board of Education meeting will be June 4th, 2025 at the Alice and Bruce King Educational Complex here at 6400 Uptown Boulevard, and live streamed at aps.edu. And with appreciation to the Woods class at Valley High School, this meeting is adjourned.